What's chirping, crickets? This is Kim from Kim Takes On. I'm Kim. Hi. And here's my co-star, co-producer, co-aider and abetter, and the minister of all things fun, Terrence the Wonder Duck. Terrence says hello, and he's hoping everybody had a terrific week last week, and they're having a great time today. So, what are we going to talk about today, crickets? Well, today we're going to talk about television. Specifically, one genre of television that was super duper popular for a while. And like everything in life, things hit peaks and valleys. Things have points when they're popular, then when they're less popular, and then when they're super less popular, which is why you don't see, dance marathons and people stuffing themselves in phone booths anymore. Because I actually haven't seen a phone booth since... You know what? Never mind. I'm just sitting here suddenly realizing how freaking old I am. Yes, we all know you know how old I am, Terrence. And we also know what's going to happen if you bring that up. 2 words. Duck pickleball. See, I can play rough when I want. I do not understand why that's called pickleball. The ball doesn't look like a pickle. I mean, I don't get it. It's just weird. Anyway, I'm talking about soap operas. Now, for a while, soap operas were kind of really a big deal because back when TV was like 3 channels, or maybe a few extras if you were super duper lucky or lived somewhere where you could climb up on a roof and put an antenna, And no, I'm not going to do the whole, back in my day, we used to have to, march backwards in the snow barefoot to go change the channel. And we were happy about it and all that crap. I'm not going to bother. Y'all know that's crap anyway. But we didn't have much of a choice in channels compared to now. But soap operas were something that when they started on TV, that was a big deal, And some people are like, well, why did they call them soap operas? When I was really small, I didn't know why they called them operas because nobody sang. I remember being like, why isn't anybody singing? I thought that's what an opera was. People with horns on their heads singing, but no, it's not that kind of... And I never asked anybody because I got enough weird looks from my parents. Like, why the hell did she ask whatever she just asked, But... some of us just couldn't stop asking questions when we were younger. They were just questions that made every other adult go, what in the hell is wrong with that kid? Don't ever change if you're that kid. Do yourself a favor. You'll have a lot more fun. Terrence and I both are unanimous about that. Long live weird. But the reason they were called soap operas is because a lot of the companies that sponsored the shows were products that would be used to clean your house, soap, detergents, stuff like that, things that women would use to clean because soap operas were only for women because no man in his right mind would watch a soap opera. Bull crap. But anyway, so soap operas became a thing, and for a while they were a big thing. A huge thing. And I remember soap operas from when I remember being a teeny tiny child and watching my mother would have them on, like if she was doing the housework. And she would just have them on. And sometimes I would watch. And I remember one time somebody said, Kimberly. And I was like, what? And I was like, oh, there's somebody on TV named Kimberly. That's weird. I'd never known somebody else that had the same name as me until I went to grade school. And then you couldn't turn around and not smack into a Kimberly. They were, you think you're unique until you go to school and you find out, yes, you are an individual just like everybody else. But soap operas were something that, I mean, I was always kind of like, okay, so this is a grown-up thing and I'm not really into it, when I was a kid. When I was a small kid, when I got to junior high, it was a lot different by then. Because when you're in junior high, I can't speak for every person on the planet, but I know how it was when I was going to junior high. And girls start trying to be more sophisticated or more grown up, or however at least they did when I was in junior high. You start doing stuff that you watch the older kids or your parents do because you want to appear more grown up. And somehow that turned into watching soaps, because the kids that I went to school with were freaking obsessed with General Hospital. Now, General Hospital's gone through a lot of stuff over the years, and besides the fact that it's still on TV, I have a feeling General Hospital is going to be on TV until they can directly beam it into your head. And don't think they're not trying to get that shit done too, folks, because I'm totally sure they are. But they, the kids I went to school with, the girls I went to school with, and possibly some of the guys I never bothered to ask, were flippin' with General Hospital. Specifically, the whole Luke and Laura storyline in General Hospital, which has some very interesting music ticks to go along with it, since we do try to combine music and other stuff on this show, because our whole wonderful island of misfit toys here. No, that was not a slam at you. You're not a misfit. You can't even wear their t-shirts. You don't have shoulders. That wasn't nice. I know you think Jerry Only is great, though. Yes, I have a rubber duck, and he likes the Misfits. Leave it alone. We all have our things, but one of the big music moments on General Hospital was during the Luke and Laura storyline, which involved Herb Alpert's song Rise during that scene in General Hospital. And the Luke and Laura scene, that if you guys think I'm going to go into that any further, you are straight up out of your minds. I wouldn't kick that hornet's nest while wearing a pair of Jimmy Choos. Not happening, no. But there was another musical moment that sadly came from a true tragedy, but kind of got co-opted by the folks at General Hospital. And oh my gosh, did the girls I went to school with glom onto this. The song Think of Laura came out by Christopher Cross. And this song, you should look it up on Wikipedia. The story about the background of this song is completely like, whoa, that is so tragic. Christopher Cross wrote and performed this song in memory of a young woman who was killed during a moment of violence. And it's very, very sad. It's very sad. But what happened was the folks at General Hospital wound up co-opting this song because we were at a point in the Luke and Laura storyline, which went on for about as long as your average Fish song, where Laura was missing and presumed dead. Spoiler alert, she wasn't. And they started using this song, Think of Laura, which I'm not sure they asked permission for or paid anybody. I'm not going to guess on that because I'm not kicking that hornet's nest either. But all the girls I went to school with were like, oh, it's so sad. Oh, poor Luke, he's all alone. Poor Laura. Oh, it's so sad. And this song is so beautiful and blah, 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 blah. And I just remember being like, I can't believe I'm genetically related to you people. Like, as a human being to another human being, I have to be an alien or something. I have to be an extraterrestrial. I can't be related to this species because you act so ridiculous. Yeah, I've been weird since then. I've been weird I was weird before I started school. So, like I said, long live weird. And I was just like, oh my gosh, please tell me I never act this stupid. Stuff like that, when you're young and antisocial and picked on a lot. But I'm better now. Or actually, I give less of a F now. Proud subscriber of the Dilligaff Club. But there was another, I'm sorry, I screwed up. That was 1982, I think, was Think of Laura. There was a song that came out in 1981, though, that I would like to bring up. Because it's got a very special place in my heart, because it was something local that got it got some national play. It actually charted on the Billboard charts, I believe. It was a song called General Hospital. The end of it was Tale. And it was a novelty song or a comedy song, or however you want to word it, done by a group called the Afternoon Delights. And they were folks that were either involved, or I'm not sure if they all worked at KISS FM, which was one of our local radio stations, which is still on the air today, KISS 108. Hey, tell the folks at KISS 108, Terrence and I say hello. And this was their telling of, the storylines of General Hospital. And the chorus was, I just can't cope without my soap. And that was, it actually did chart on Billboard, and it was a cute little song. It was cute. It was funny. If you missed a couple of episodes, I guess you could go back and listen to it. And, and General Hospital has had some other things going for it over the years besides Luke and Laura. I mean, how many soap operas can say that they had an honest to blog movie star that wanted to be on their soap opera and was like, hi, can I come be on your show? And when the person is Elizabeth Taylor, are you going to say no? No, you're not, because it's Elizabeth freaking Taylor, who wound up appearing on the episode where Luke and Laura get married, and she's a villainess, and she winds up cursing them and stuff like that. It's Elizabeth Taylor. Come on. I mean, I know some people out there are like, oh, well, she was an old actress and stuff. She was Elizabeth Taylor, and you best respect. Terrence and I are in full agreement. And of course, there's been a metric crap ton of other soaps out there. And of course, irony of ironies, when I was a kid and all the girls were running home to watch General Hospital and stuff like that, I was running home because I'm like, I can't miss this episode of Star Blazers, which I was Star Blazers and Force 5 were my things that I was completely addicted to. And it never occurred to me until later on that Star Blazers, which was an anime that also, so was Force 5, that Star Blazers was kind of a soap opera in space kind of a thing, if you look at it that way, because there were relationships and stuff like that. And it was very cool, and I still love it. Force 5 was 5 different shows that they ran, a different show every day for the week. And I could not. The cool thing about Star Blazers was that the first series, because there were 3 of them. The first series is about a ship that's sent from Earth to get to this other planet to get this machine that's supposed to help to heal Earth, because Earth's been bombarded by radiation bombs from this invading species. And every day they'd be like, the planet Earth has 100 days left, and it just sucked me in. Never occurred to me that was kind of a soap opera-ish kind of a thing to do. But like I said, that was me back in, when I was a kid. And irony of ironies, by the time I got to, I want to say more college than high school, I started getting into some of the soaps. And I didn't get into all of them, and some of them I got into kind of late. I watched a lot of Days of Our Lives because I was a complete Patch and Kayla person. I cried when Patch and Kayla got married. I didn't even cry at my own family's weddings at that time, unless you took bored to tears, literally. That and Stephen Nichols was such a hunk. I thought he was super cute. That's another show that actually had a hit that crossed over into the regular charts. Friends and Lovers, done by Gloria Loring and Carl Anderson, became a big hit. I believe there was also a country music version done by different people, and I think it came out before the version with Gloria and Carl. My sister loved that song and played it constantly. Not quite as much as she played Hotel California. I don't know what happened with that, but when my sister discovered Hotel California, it got played a lot. And I was like, I'm going to throw that record out the window one of these days when you're not home. But I never did. But Friends and Lovers was a very large hit. And I got into that show. When I heard about a soap that was starting, I was like, oh, I want to get into this. I want to start watching this from the ground up. And I tried that with Generations. And I thought I really liked that for a while. And then I don't know why, but I just kind of tapered away from it. And soap operas, of course, sometimes soap operas have gone into different areas. They try and do like the same, there's families and drama and this, that, and the other thing. But a lot of soap operas in America, quite a few soap operas in America, started going the primetime route. And, that had happened before, but it didn't really take off, I would say, until Dallas in the 70s, because everybody and their dog was watching Dallas. Even people who professed to hate soap operas watched Dallas because they were like, oh, it's not a soap opera, it's on primetime. That makes it different. Nothing like a good self-justification to get the day rolling, right, kids? You all do it. Don't lie. You do it. I do it. Terrence does it. We all do it. Although I don't have the faintest idea what you would have to justify. Looking as cute as you do. You justify looking as cute as you do as getting away. That's how you get away with stuff. That's an awesome strategy. High five. Boop. It's amazing what you can get away with when you're cute. But of course, and everybody watched Dallas. Like I said, everybody I knew watched Dallas, and everybody loved to hate J.R. Ewing, because you could tell Larry Hagman was having the freaking time of his life playing this scumbag. Really, who wouldn't? Who wouldn't have that much fun? You are playing one of the most vilest villains on TV, and you never even, you think of villainy, you think of I do. You think of Darth Vader or Freddy Krueger, not some guy in a cowboy hat and a suit, But JR was the baddest of the bad, and like I said, Larry Hagman was loving it. And speaking from personal experience, it is fun as hell to play the bad guy. The good guy usually makes it to the end and usually gets the girl and stuff like that, but there's sometimes being bad can be really, really fun. And of course, one thing that Dallas did to perfection most of the time, not all of the time, was the fine art of the cliffhanger season ending. And, they had a lot of them, but there was one there was the one, if you prefer, the one that just literally grabbed the world by the face and said, "You will pay attention." The whole mystery around who shot JR. And this drove people bananas. Speaking as someone who was alive at that point and can testify to it, there was speculation a go-go happening with who shot JR. Part of that was because people genuinely, wanted to know, because the problem was there were so many friggin' suspects. I mean, talk about an embarrassment of riches. You were like, well, it could be him, or it could be her, or it could be them, or it could be all of these people. You had so many people who hated JR for this, that, and the other reason. And people who would have looked at killing JR as a moral victory for the rest of the planet, or whatever. And then the actors' strike happened during this whole thing. So now it was like, are we going to get an answer to this or what? Nope, the actors are on strike. What? And of course, people were pulling their hair out about that. And Larry Hagman, again, had total fun with this and was like, well, I don't know what's going to happen. Maybe I'll make it. Maybe I won't. Because I did actually hear that they were thinking about, like, they're not going to kill JR off. It's not going to happen. These people would be crazy if they did that. And of course they didn't. And eventually we found out who shot JR. And I will admit, true confessions time, that I had a bet with my younger sister about who shot JR. I said it was Sue Ellen. My sister said, spoiler alert, I can't believe I'm giving spoiler alerts for a series this damn old, but in case you didn't see it, as I said Sue Ellen shot him, because you always bet on the spouse first. And she said it was Kristen, Sue Ellen's sister. And she won. I know you're all dying to know how much she won. She won a quarter. A whole quarter. 25 cents. And I realize some people are now going, are you kidding? You hyped all this up for 25 cents? Y'all have to remember, folks, back when this happened, 25 cents bought you a full-size Hershey bar. I am not making that up. And when you're that young, 25 cents is a lot of damn money. Ironically, I'm the person that loves mystery stories, and my sister never couldn't be bothered, so I guess I decided, I was like, I'm never going to get tricked like that again, says the person who barely solved a murder she wrote. But that's not the only cliffhanger. People think Dallas that was their big cliffhanger. And they did have other cliffhangers. There was the Bobby comes back from the dead cliffhanger. Bobby in the shower, That was the dumbest friggin' thing they ever did. An entire season, one of the best seasons of the show, and it's all a dream. I'm like, you all got to be shitting me. You can't be serious about this. But no, they were serious. Because Bobby had died this season before, and now all of a sudden Pam's walking into the bathroom, and there's Bobby in the shower. Good morning. And they ended the season there, and then they come back and she's all like, oh, I had a horrible dream. I dreamed you were dead and blah, 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 blah. I'm like, you people think we're stupid, don't you? But it worked. So I'm not sure what that says. And you know what? I'm not going to dwell on it. There was one other, I do want to bring up, there was one other cliffhanger though that I thought this one, I look back on it and I'm like, oh my gosh, that was so freaking clever. It was another scene in JR's office at night, and we see that the chair at the desk is turned away from the audience, and all of a sudden, bang, bang, and I'm sitting there going, this is deja vu all over again. And the person falls out of the chair, shot, and it's not JR, it's Bobby. And I remember being like, it was like one of just those moments. But the one time I remember literally screaming at the TV was the end of Dallas. And I know, I'm an idiot. I'm a chump. I'm a, whatever else you want to say. I'm a bozo, however you want to word it. I mean, I should have known they'd be going out on a cliffhanger, even if it was the series finale. And we had this whole thing where JR being led through what the life of the people around him would have been like if he wasn't born by a being that he thinks is an angel. Spoiler alert, it isn't. And the last things we see are JR with a gun. We hear a gunshot, Bobby running to JR's room and seeing something and going, oh my God. And the show ended. And that was it. That was the series finale. And I remember screaming my lungs out. I was absolutely livid. I was like a ditched girl on prom night. I was just like, you mother effing sons of, you can't do this to me. I mean, I was unhinged. Terrence would like me to rephrase that and say more unhinged than usual. I love you too. Smartass duck. And of course, the whole thing was resolved when we got the Dallas TV movies, which they did, and Bobby being like, I come home, you shot up the mirror and you ranted about the devil and all this stuff like that. I'm like, well, at least they acknowledged that this happened. So, and of course, Dallas wound up coming back on TNT for a while. But when Larry Hagman passed away, let's face it, you cannot have Dallas and not have J.R. Ewing. That's like trying to start a fireworks display and somebody forgot the fuses. It's just not going to work. And there were several songs that were done about the whole Who Shot JR drama. I've heard at least two of them. One of them is very typical for the time. They bring up other things around that time, bringing up like, oh, I know who shot him. It was they actually have a person on the record doing a imitation of at the time President Jimmy Carter, talking about, oh, I know who it was. It was Ronald Reagan or John Anderson. It's like, you have to get politics from back then, I know people who would think that's hilarious, and I'm just kind of like. Also, guess who was the only person in our class, because we had a mock election, guess who was the only person in our class that voted for John Anderson? Because nobody else did, because I gotta be me, as the song says. But, and then there were other primetime soaps as well, obviously. One of the other big ones at the time was Dynasty on ABC. I always thought it sucked that Dynasty was on ABC and Dallas and Knots Landing were on CBS, because I was always like, man, could you imagine that spinoff? Or that spinoff, crossover. Alexis Carrington meets J.R. Ewing and the rest of the world ducks and covers. That would have been nuts. I think it's really funny that so many daytime soap operas are usually, they'll usually have like one wealthy character or one wealthy family, but a lot of the rest of the people are middle class or stuff like that. But the primetime soaps, those were all like, crazy wealthy people for the most part, not all the time. But, you had Dallas, which is all about oil and stuff like that. And you had Dynasty, which is also about oil. And it's 2025 and we're still dealing with vehicles that are run on petroleum. Aren't we supposed to have flying cars by now? Which I actually think would be a really stupid idea because I live in Massachusetts and see how people drive regular cars. Flying cars, go F yourself. What we need are matter transporters and working lightsabers. Okay, the last one's just for me. And before TC puts it over in the little thing over here to be funny, I know I'm not going to get a working lightsaber even if it ever happens. I have about as much chance of getting a working lightsaber as I have of getting a working flamethrower. It's not fair. Darby Allin gets to use a flamethrower. I don't get to use a flamethrower. I mean, okay, Darby Allin can skateboard way better than me and has been to the top of Mount Everest and I haven't, but still. Anyway, what was I talking about? Oh, and of course, there's two things that I think Dynasty. Two things that to me are Dynasty. Shoulder pads, because it was the 80s and for some reason it was the height of femininity to look like a linebacker. I never figured out that look on women. And I actually had jackets that had little padded things in it and I thought they were stupid. And catfights. Oh my gosh. When Dynasty hit on, hey, people like watching women roll around and punch each other. They took off with that. They took that ball and they ran with it. They had a lot of catfights on that show. And I think that probably led to some people having some really interesting predilections later on in life. No kink shaming. We will not be kink shaming here on this show. Whatever, float your boat, float your boat. Safe, sane, and consensual. As long as everybody's in on the fun of legal age and has a heartbeat. I try to be open-minded. Both of us. Both of us try to be very open-minded. Terrence has to try very hard to be open-minded because his mind is very empty sometimes. Yeah, you want to start making fun of my age? We're going to start pulling that kind of crap. Wise ass. Anyway. And the crazy thing was when they had catfights, you really believed that these people wanted to murder each other. Usually it was Alexis and Crystal, which I always thought I was like, Linda Evans is way taller than her. She's going to kick her ass. And usually that seemed to happen. But the really bad fights were between Alexis and Dominique Devereaux, who I thought was just absolutely one of the most beautiful women. Diane Carroll was just, radiant lady. And she didn't put up with any of Alexis's bullshit at all. Because Crystal would just be like, oh, Alexis, I can't stand you and stuff like that. And she'd be very calm and rational about it until Alexis would finally needle her too much. Dominique was just like, that one time, like, Alexis's newspaper said something bad about her because she was a singer. And she was all like, retract this or I will cram this paper down your throat. And I was like, I like this lady. She don't take crap. She doesn't take crap off of anybody. Because, I'm sorry, Joan Collins as Alexis was the queen bitch. And she could just freeze your blood with these little bitchy remarks. And I just think it's hilarious that a lot of people who didn't really, I'm sure a lot of people knew who she was when Dynasty started and she actually appeared, which wasn't in the first couple of episodes. They hadn't even cast Alexis when they had her walk into a trial with a big hat with a hood on, a veil over it. And, Fallon was like, oh my God, that's my mother. And Joan wasn't even in that at first. And then when they like had her lift up the veil and everything, it's like, oh, it's Joan Collins. Cause up till that point, I was like, isn't that nice lady from the city on the edge of forever? Oh my gosh, it is. I was like, whoa, wow, she's really mean now. And Joan Collins, lovely lady, still lovely lady, amazingly lovely lady. Beautiful, beautiful. And of course, there were other nighttime soaps. None of them seemed to last super long. Like Flamingo Road, which didn't, I mean, I don't think it lasted a mega long time. It's funny because now there was a movie called Flamingo Road, like way back. It was a movie with Joan Crawford, and I've actually seen that now. And I was like, wow, okay, that's different. And then they made a soap, and I was like, okay, whatever. And of course, some soaps get a little bit, I mean, when you have a soap opera, and especially soap operas that were around for like a super long time, you know, you have plots, and sometimes the plots get a little gosh, I don't want to be nasty because, you know, people wrote and worked hard on this stuff. So sometimes the soap's plots would be, you know, pretty the usual stuff you'd get in a drama, you know, infidelity, pregnancy, lawsuits, will readings, blah, blah, blah. Somebody dies, somebody has a kid, blah, blah, blah. But sometimes you got things that got a little bit, you know, that's the perfect word for it. That really is. Goofy. Thank you. I appreciate that. I mean, some soaps got into, I mean, between, you know, characters coming back from the dead, you know, showing up for, we thought you died in the jungles of Peru in an airplane crash or something like that. And then finding out, you know, like, oh my gosh, that's not Bart, that's Bert, his evil, identical cousin from Lithuania or something like that. We've had things happen on soap involving UFOs, mystery cities, demonic possession. I am not joking about that. They had a whole storyline on Days of Our Lives where one of the characters was possessed by the devil twice. I'm like, what? Am I watching a soap or The Conjuring? What the heck is going on here? This is craziness. And that was actually before all those kind of movies came out, so I don't know what that says. And then you got a soap like Passions. Oh my gosh, Passions. I'm like, every time I watched that show, I had more questions. And they all started with what? As in, what the heck is going on? What the heck are these people writing? What in the world are these people smoking? And what is in the brownies they're eating? Because this show is batshit insane. You had witches, actual witches, and dolls coming to life and stuff like that. And it was just like, people really aren't okay. And it did last for a bit, but it's not as long as some shows have. And soaps have also given us a lot of people that have become, well, you get people who become famous for being on a soap, or you get people who were famous for starting on a soap or having some of their earlier work be on a soap. Someone who became famous because of being on a soap for about Half Past Forever. Susan Lucci, Erica Kane, tack the 900 other names that she's got on the end of it. And I'm not slamming on that. There's no shame in being a working actress or actor, no matter what you do, as long as you do it, you do your best, and the check clears. I have complete and utter respect for you. And some of the lines and stuff that she says would sound absolutely ridiculous if it wasn't Susan Lucci saying it, because she makes everything sound amazing because she's just that great of an actress. As I mentioned, Stephen Nichols, also really awesome from Days of Our Lives, and other people that's wound up starting on soaps and wound up going on to other stuff. One of them being Rick Springfield. I know y'all know who Rick Springfield is. The guy that gave the world Jesse's Girl, and also was a heartthrob on General Hospital back in the day as Dr. Noah Drake. And later on became a vessel for Lucifer on the series Supernatural. So he's part of the Supernatural family. Welcome, Rick. And also was a co-star with Meryl Streep in a movie called Ricky and the Flash, which if you haven't seen it, you should, because it's great. It was criminally underseen when it was out in the theaters. Try and find it on your TV system, because it's a great movie and he's terrific in it. And like I said, he was the heartthrob Dr. Noah Drake. And that was also the time people realized, oh, wait, this dude can sing too. I mean, he started out as a singer and then went into acting. And then people realized, holy crap, this guy can sing. And, Jesse's Girl, Human Touch, all that stuff. We won't talk about Hard to Hold. Sorry. Yeah, I know we said we wouldn't talk about it, but when have I ever been able to keep my big mouth shut? She has a point. Duck pickleball. I mean it. And I know you're going to say, well, she can't tie anything else in with Rick Springfield, can she? Yes, I can. I most certainly can. I can tie in pro wrestling manager extraordinaire Jimmy Hart. And I know a bunch of people just went, oh, what the F? But no, I can. Jimmy Hart recorded a song called Eat Your Heart Out, Rick Springfield. And it's actually really funny. It's a song about a guy bemoaning the fact that his girlfriend is in love with Rick Springfield. Which, considering looking at Rick Springfield, I totally get it. I'm like, damn it, why didn't I notice this guy was hot back then? I was a very singular-minded, teenager, I guess. I only could focus on one guy at a time. That changed. Got to high school, found heavy metal, and never looked back. It's such a good thing I was painfully shy in school, or I would have gotten a lot of trouble. And tell them the truth. Terrence will avert, Terrence will back me up. I was painfully shy in school, wasn't I? Painfully. See? Yeah. And as I said, other people have gone on to bigger and better things. One of them being from Days of Our Lives, that being Jensen Ackles, who played the character of Eric Brady in the early 90s up until leaving the show in 2000. And of course, going on to 15 seasons on Supernatural. So he must have been doing something right. And now appearing as Soldier Boy on The Boys. I'd salute that flag. Nope, stand up and salute, baby. No, okay. Smacky handy. And of course, there's been a million other people that have appeared on soaps for one reason or another. In cameos and things like that. I mentioned Elizabeth Taylor, Carol Burnett, one of the greatest comedians of all time, and I will fight you on that, has appeared on soaps in her cleaning lady role. The little cartoon you always saw at the end of the show. She appeared on soaps in that character. And tons of other famous people, because it's cool to be on a soap. When you're younger, it's cool to be on Sesame Street for your kids. When you're older, it was cool to be on soaps for the teenagers, I guess. But soaps over the last few years, over the last decades or so, you really don't see them as much now. It's just kind of like, well, they've run their course and, this show got axed and that show got axed and stuff like that, which I'm sure threw a lot of people into panics. But with the advent of streaming, now you have, some soaps are still on streaming, to continue the story and stuff like that. And to be really honest, I think that's great. I know some people would think that soap operas are just harmless fluff, but I think for a lot of people, they're giving them someone to root for, someone to when you're having a bad day, you can watch a soap and be like, well, geez, at least my twin sister didn't steal my husband at the altar or whatever. Or at least my boss yelled at me today and I got a run in my stockings, but at least I wasn't kidnapped by a gorilla. Yes, that actually happened on Ryan's Hope. No, I'm not kidding. And yes, it was a guy in a gorilla suit. I mean, it wasn't Bride of the Gorilla bad, or The Bride and the Beast, an Ed Wood movie, because actually nothing's worse than a gorilla named Spanky. And you can see this movie on Riff Tracks if you want to go look for it. And I would recommend it because if I had to see it and be in pain, so do you, damn it. Do you have a favorite soap? Do you remember a favorite soap from when you were younger? I'd love to know about it. Me and Terrence would love to know because we're nosy. PlatinumRoselle@yahoo.com and let us know. And please like this video, share it, subscribe to our site, and check out all the other crazy things that we have that we hope that you will check out and listen to and hopefully have a laugh or find out something you didn't know or learn about something you'd like to try out for the first time, music or movies or whatever. And that is going to wrap things up for today. So this is Kim from Kim Takes On and Terrence the Wonder Duck. And we are wishing you a great week. Hug the ones you love the ones you hug, and keep rocking.